I am absolutely honored to welcome this year's commencement speaker, Dr. Mark Bedell, Superintendent of Kansas City Public Schools. As an outstanding educator, Dr. Bedell has become one of the top urban public school leaders in the country because of his tremendous efforts right here in Kansas City. After joining the district in 2016, he's now the longest-serving superintendent of KCPS in more than 50 years. And most of us know the remarkable feat accomplished in January when Kansas City Public Schools returned to full accreditation status for the first time in 20 years. That deserves a big round of applause. Woo. When Dr. Bedell arrived, he worked with students, parents, staff, and partners to enact a 5-year strategic plan that placed student achievement at the center of the school system's work, made the central office more efficient, improved school board governance, and increased staff skills and morale. He has forged innovative and meaningful partnerships with Sprint and the Consulate of Mexico on behalf of students and families. He developed a mentorship program to match caring adults with 8,000 deserving students. He helped launch a middle college program to give 17 to 24-year-olds who never finished school an opportunity to earn a high school diploma and enter college. Dr. Bedell and the school board also created an innovative equity policy to direct the school system's resources and programs to give all students the opportunity to reach their greatest potential. Dr. Bedell attended Fisk University, where he was in the honors program and was a national leading scorer in Division III basketball. Thank you very much. He holds a master's degree from Tennessee State University and a doctorate from Nova Southeastern University, where he examined school culture, climate, and dropout prevention. He served in administrative roles in Houston and Baltimore public schools before making his home in Kansas City with his wife and 3 children, and has since been named the new Superintendent of the Year by the Missouri Association of School Administrators. It is an honor to welcome this exceptional leader who believes in education and equity to his core and is helping change the trajectory for thousands of students in our community. Please join me in welcoming friend to William Jewell, Dr. Mark Bedell.
Try to move this up a little bit. Thank you, President McLeod. It's an honor to be here today, to have this opportunity to just share a brief period of my life with you all as you get ready to embark on your next journey as graduates. Also, I want to thank the faculty and staff, parents and guardians, everybody that have supported these young students to where they are today. You know, I get to speak as a keynote at national conferences. I get to do seminars and forums all across the country, but this is my first higher ed commencement. And I couldn't be more thankful of you all having belief in me to come in today to speak and to try to breathe life into these students as they move on with their next journeys. Thank you also to the Board of Trustees for this opportunity. Had an opportunity to speak with several of you up top. Generation Z students are on track to become the most educated generation. You have higher high school graduation rates and lower dropout rates than those who came before you. In 2018, 57% of 18 to 21-year-olds were in college, compared to 52% of millennials and 43% of General Xers at the same age. What will you do with your education, and how will you impact this world? I want to talk a little bit about how leading with love and compassion can make a better future for all. As you heard, we hit one of our highest achievements in this school district on January 11th, 2022. We celebrated several Saturdays ago with nearly 1,000 people in the Power and Light regarding this accomplishment. 3 days later, as a superintendent, I'm dealing with one of the lowest things that can happen to a superintendent through violence on one of my campuses. A parent sends their child to my school, and I'm not able to send that child back home. There's nothing lower than that. And I have to continuously sit in my office and ask myself, how did we get to this point? How is it that what happens over and over and over again is tolerated, that we become callous and so cold-hearted to what happens that it's a norm, that we're desensitized to these atrocities. And the only thing I can think of as I thought about my journey in life and my ask ultimately of all of you who are getting ready to move into this world is, how do we undo it? Who's going to help turn this world to where we are operating with kindness and love and compassion and understanding and tolerance for each other? I'm here today because I had people that I hope you all will become show up in my life. I grew up in Rochester, New York, where I was born to a 16-year-old mother, and I have no father in my life. I was told in the 2nd grade by my teacher that I was dumb, ugly, and would never amount to anything. I dropped out of school as a result. And eventually I would become a ward of the state, where the state comes in and they split us up as a family because of either being neglected or growing up abused. I'm the oldest of 8 children. We were split up and we lived with different relatives. My brother and I lived with an aunt and uncle, and they also had 8 other kids in the house. That made 12 of us in one house in Rochester, New York, with one restroom. My mom and stepfather were drug addicts. When I was 15, I moved back home under the assumption that the situation had improved, but that wasn't the case. I worked as a custodian while in high school, and when I received my first check, $62 and some change, my mother said, "You need to pay rent." I refused to pay rent because I knew where that money was going to be used and how it was going to be used. I was then kicked out of my house. With nowhere to live, I slept in abandoned cars. I slept with many different people throughout the first half of my 9th grade year in high school, and then I would eventually move in with my grandmother, sleeping on a couch in the living room of a studio apartment. There were really good people who came into my life, including my grandmother, some of my relatives, when I needed them the most. Moreover, I received a lot of support from my best friend parents, who to this day I call mom and dad, to people that I worked with when I worked at Kodak, people I worked with when I worked at Wegmans. They helped me to navigate through many difficult times, despite the self-inflicted mistakes that I made. My 10th grade homeroom teacher, Mr. Barrett, told me after I became ineligible to play basketball that I was throwing it all away. He told me I was academically talented, but that I needed to lower my guards and talk to someone about what was happening outside of school. You see, Mr. Barrett didn't live through the conditions I lived through. Mr. Barrett had a heart. It didn't matter the race, gender, or how I showed up. This teacher saw something in me. I would eventually tell Mr. Barrett about my experiences, and he would take me under his wing. At that time, I didn't know that it was mentoring, but I understand now that it was. He kept telling me that I'd make a great teacher someday. I said, absolutely not. I plan on going to the NBA. I still to this day believe that I can go to the NBA, even though my body knows that that's not possible. I told them I want this basketball up here because as I close out my speech, this is an important piece that I think would resonate with all of you. And he told me, "You'll be a great educator one day, Mark." As you can all see, he was onto something. I became an educator. I'm in the field of education now for 23 years. I went on to college and I played basketball, and I did. I had an opportunity to lead Division III in scoring in 1997. I averaged 28 points a game my senior year. When I had the opportunity to try out for pro basketball at an NBA camp in Chicago, I thought I was going to make it, but that phone call never came. That was one of the lowest points in my life. I was down. I had a college degree, but I wasn't doing what I went to college for. I wasn't making any money. I couldn't afford to pay my rent. My lights got cut off. Everyone had lifted me up so high, and there I was in a dark apartment about to be homeless again although I have a college degree. That's when I started substitute teaching. My new dream was that I would move forward with what I was supposed to do that I was trying to run away from, which was to be an educator. I had this expectation growing up, everybody, that I would make $40,000 a year, live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and own a Honda Accord, and I would be doing better than what anybody in my family was doing. And that was my expectation. And that's the path that led me to where I am today. I've worked with teams that have helped shape the lives of thousands and thousands of students since 1999, extending the kindness and compassion Mr. Barrett showed me. That's how our district, after more than 20 years, regained full accreditation earlier this year. I'm proud to be the superintendent of the fully accredited Kansas City Public School District. I truly believe that the difference in my life outcomes compared to my siblings and others who grew up like me was because of the love and compassion shown by all of my advocates who came into my life at different periods. So what can you do? The world can be a much better place if each and every single one of you lead with love and compassion. As you think about how we scroll through social media right now, when you think about how things play out in the news, the narrative tends to be negative. We get fed with so much negativity that it just becomes a norm. And that's not right, and that's not normal. We have to figure out how we can breathe hope into this narrative. I'm telling you, hope resonates across this country, across this world. People who are shown love and kindness can have hope. And that's my challenge to each and every single one of you. We have to change our mindset, and we have to change the mindset of others. I need for people to truly understand that just because it's not your community or you don't live in it, that it's not your problem, right? We all have a responsibility to own every community that resides within this region and within this world. And we have to do our part to continue to be a value add. You are part of the smartest, best educated generation we've ever had. And I'm going to challenge you to do 2 simple things. 1, become a mentor. It's simple. Whether you are here in the Kansas City region or you're elsewhere, be a mentor. Breathe life into some of these kids who just need a positive influence in their lives. And the advocation that you do, the advocating, can make a difference. It can create somebody like me. Most importantly, do the hard work that needs to be done. One of the things I tell people is that it's more than just to show up to a protest, to protest an issue, or to write a check. I tell people when the protesting ends, the hard works begin. At the end of the day, we have to look at policy. We have to look at how the system is designed. And when your president talks about equity and talk about those types of things that we have to do, the work begins with how we change policy. So just showing up and writing a check or showing up to a protest, you haven't done your part. You've helped, but we have to unpack and undo the way that the system has been set up so that everybody has a fair shot, a fair and equitable shot at the Kansas City dream and at the American dream. In closing, you can do this because you've just done the hard thing of graduating from college. You can do other hard things. The hardest thing in your life right now will not always be the hardest thing. Your plans are going to change in good ways and in some ways that may not be good, in ways that challenge and frustrate you while also exciting you. You won't be on the exact same path in 5 years or 10 years, and that's okay. You see this ball? I never played in the NBA, but I still love basketball. I still play with my students. I still play with the community. I still play with educators. I've leveraged basketball as a means of connecting with the community. So in my real profession, I still get to use what I love to help me be an effective educator. There are going to be things you live through that you wish never had happened to you. But those are also the things that determine who each of you will become. All of us have unique paths that we have to travel, but you won't achieve success on anyone's timeline but your own. Maybe the person sitting next to you has a job offer and you don't. That was me sitting with the class of 1997. I did not know what I was going to do the next day, but my hopes was that I was going to be able to play basketball and earn money. And when that didn't happen, I was lost. You're going to spend a lot of time wondering why everyone else seems to have it all figured out. But ultimately, you will figure out that there aren't many that have it figured out. We're still all trying to navigate this world around how we can be the biggest impact. And that's when it all starts to get easier. And finally, when you're at a crossroads with someone on a different journey, remember to treat them with love and compassion. Love and compassion will change this world, and that's my ask of each and every single one of you. Congratulations.